so much for joining us today. My name is Nathan Johnson. I'm the Public Lands Director with the Ohio Environmental Council. And for more than 50 years, the OEC has worked to implement forward-thinking, science-based, pragmatic solutions to secure healthy air, land, and water in Ohio. And thank you for tuning in today. If you like trees, you're really at the right place. We've got some great topics to discuss. And please share your page, this page, on your page on Facebook if you get the chance. That way your friends can tune in too. So really excited today. We have the pleasure of speaking with Rosalie Hendon. She is the project manager for Columbus Parks and Recreation. And the topic of discussion for today is the City of Columbus's new urban forestry master plan. The plan looks to do some really big and exciting things in Columbus. I know I'm really excited. A lot of science, but a lot of great initiative, a lot of really important tree planting and community building goals and objectives that I know Rosalie is really excited to share with us today. So without further ado, Rosalie, let's talk a little bit about the master plan. So I guess first off, when Columbus went about going through the process, putting together the master plan, why does the city need an urban forestry master plan?
It's great to be with you all today. Thanks again for having me. So Columbus really needed, we thought it was the perfect time to have an urban forestry master plan. It's the first that the city has ever created. And really, we know that Columbus is facing a lot of challenges, like any big city. We know that we are growing and we're expecting our population to increase dramatically over the coming decades. So we want to make sure that we're growing in a smart and sustainable way. We also know that Columbus has the fastest growing urban heat island in the country. And so that means that the city is just much hotter than surrounding areas. And so that heat is a stress on our population, on our residents as they're walking around and their energy bills, et cetera. And we also know that we're expecting even hotter summers and wetter summers from climate change. And climate change is going to put additional burdens both on our community and on the trees themselves. So we really felt like this was the right time to create this plan as a strategic long-term plan for all of the trees in Columbus.
Gotcha, thank you. So, you know, for folks tuning in who may not be super familiar with the concept of urban forest, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what is an urban forest? How can we measure that forest and get a sense of how we're doing with it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Nathan. I always like to go back to just making sure we know what an urban forest is. So the urban forest is very simply all the trees in Columbus, no matter where they're growing, public land, private land, along the streets, in the parks, in your backyard. The entire thing is Columbus's urban forest, and that's because natural systems don't distinguish between property boundaries, right? It's all one forest. And as to how we're doing, so Columbus had an urban tree canopy assessment that was released in 2015. We know that if you look at Columbus from the air, the percentage of land that's covered by trees currently is 22%. So Columbus, that's one easy way to compare cities to each other, is what is their canopy cover percentage. So again, Columbus is 22%. And when we look at some of our peer cities, we know that we are on the low side. For example, Cincinnati is at 39%, Pittsburgh is at 40%. So we have some peer cities that are just having a lot more tree cover than we do currently, and that really translates into reduced benefits for our residents.
Gotcha. So that's interesting. Okay, so we're not on par with a couple of other cities sort of in the region here. It sounds like Pittsburgh and a couple of others. So we have a ways to go. I think that underscores the importance. And I think, I mean, again, this is wonderful that the city is devoted to moving up and kind of getting up to some of those other cities. I know we're certainly not in the worst situation, but I mean, everything we can do to improve the situation is really great. So Rosalie, on that point, can you tell us a little bit more, and I know you mentioned this a little bit, but a little bit more about the virtues, the benefits of that urban forest, the urban canopy? What sorts of great things can it do for people, for the environment?
Trees are so important, especially in the urban environment. So we know that, and you know this just as well as I do, on a summer day, you're really hoping for some shade. We're really hoping that there are trees shading the sidewalks and making life bearable. Trees also, with their shade, they're cooling the air, they're reducing energy bills, they're also filtering the air and making it cleaner. They're taking up water. And there's also studies that have been shown that having additional tree cover can really make communities more cohesive. They can make business districts, people want to shop for longer in business districts with more trees, property values increase, and even there's been some studies out of Baltimore that show that crime can go down. So it's just, they're amazing, and trees we really see as part of the solution here in the city to a lot of challenges we face.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about how this plays into climate change as well?
Absolutely. So like I said, we know that in the next decades, Columbus's summers will become even hotter and more humid. And so trees are really critical to be both, taking up carbon from the air, so helping with the atmospheric carbon that there is, but also just helping with those, that additional heat. I mean, one of the metrics is 90-degree days, and we know that Columbus residents are going to be facing that increased heat. And, heat-related stress contributes to a lot of health issues and deaths each year in the U.S. And so making sure that we have trees near where folks are living and working and playing is really critical to that long-term sustainability and resiliency of our city.
Got it. So, and again, that's great in terms of those benefits. Can you tell us about, and I know when folks look at the plan, and I encourage everyone listening today to go check out the website for the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan. It's really impressive. The report has a lot of data, a lot of great information, but can you tell us a little bit about the process that has led up to where we are now with the plan?
Yes, so we've been working on this master plan for a little over a year now, and it was really critical to us to engage a broad range of stakeholders. So there are a lot of people who are players in urban forestry, and it's not just the city, it's residents and neighborhoods, it's universities, it's developers, it's businesses, it's nonprofits. So we really looked to engage a broad group of stakeholders, and we did that in several different ways. We had a project team which served as sort of a steering committee for the project and met with us regularly. We had a larger group that was an advisory group, and we engaged them through a series of 3 workshops last spring. We had a public open house that occurred on March 4th. We felt very lucky about that timing because we had 135 people elbow to elbow in a big room. So no, but really a lot of interest from the community. And then we also had interviews, and I did small group presentations. And then we also had an online survey where we got a little over 300 responses. So we used all of that public input along with all of the analyses that our consultants conducted, and together, brought that into writing this plan. And really excited, thanks Nathan for mentioning about the draft document that is available online. We're in the middle of our public comment period and really want to continue to receive that public input and validate the plan that we've drafted.
Mm-hmm. And folks, if you're watching, you can see in the chat, Emily has dropped in the webpage that you can go to check out the plan and submit comments. And so, Rosalie, we'll get into some of the key core components of this plan. But since we're talking about process, can we plug a little bit again about how folks can get involved right now with the comment period?
Yes. So again, on our website, on our project website, there's a lot of great information. Just if you're interested about the canopy in Columbus, what the canopy is in your neighborhood, we have a really exciting interactive canopy map where you can drill down to your address and see what the percentage is in your block group, and it's really quite a mosaic. I think you'll think it's really interesting. But on that same page, we have the draft document, so the Urban Forestry Master Plan and an accompanying technical report. You can download the PDF and right on that same page, submit comments. That's open through the end of the month until March 31st. Please submit comments. Really, we're going to take a lot of time and look at them and make sure that we're taking into account all the input before we finalize this document. It's really important to us. We also have a council hearing coming up next Wednesday, the 24th. That will be at 4 o'clock, 4 to 5:30, and I and the consultants will be presenting about the plan. And so if you want to get more information, get some visuals, we have some really interesting maps and charts that I'm excited to share out. And then there will be time for public comment as well. So if you're interested in speaking, the details of that are also on our project website.
All right. Hey, thank you, Rosalie. That's great. And again, I'll just reiterate what Rosalie shared with us. You can see in the chat, you can go to the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan website, and then especially at the Get Involved page, you can provide, or I'm sorry, you can find where to submit comments if you'd like. Those are due by the end of this month, March 31st. And there's also some information there on the upcoming Columbus City Council meeting on this, which again, welcome folks to attend. And that, I believe, is on the 24th of next week. So with that said, Rosalie, so you go through the plan, a lot of great detail there, but it seems like there are three major priorities or goals of the plan for the city and for the urban canopy, the urban forest. Can you tell us what those three major goals are?
So the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan has three goals. The first goal is a long-term goal, and that is to reach 40% canopy cover citywide. Again, a refresher, we're at 22%. The goal is to get to 40%, almost doubling our canopy. So it's very ambitious. The other two goals are more for short term. So the second goal is to stop net canopy loss by 2030. And goal 3 is to invest in equitable canopy across all neighborhoods, also by 2030.
Gotcha. So those are the three main goals again. So can you tell us with goal number 3, what does it mean in terms of equity and working with forestry, urban forestry, the urban forest, the urban canopy, in terms of equity in the city of Columbus?
Thanks for asking that, Nathan. Equity is really important to the entire city of Columbus. Our vision is to be a socially equitable city. And so it was also a common theme in the input that we received. We know that the current canopy distribution is not equitable across Columbus neighborhoods. It really is a really wide range. Even though the average is 22%, that goes from 9% in downtown all the way to 41% in Clintonville. So it's an extreme variation there. And it was important for us to look at where can trees be doing the most good, right? So there's canopy cover, and like I said, there's that interactive canopy map on our website, or in the plan itself, you'll see there's maps of what canopy cover each neighborhood has. That's not the whole story though, right? Because there's historic disinvestment that has happened in Columbus, just like all other cities in the US, such as redlining. There's, demographic patterns, there's land use patterns, there's zoning. There's been a lot of things that influence those neighborhoods, our neighborhoods. And so it's really important to us to look not only where is canopy low, but also where is the highest need. And so in our plan, we did a really interesting social equity analysis with the guidance of our stakeholders. We created an index based on several different demographic and health and crime factors to really analyze, out of all the neighborhoods in Columbus, where can we prioritize investing in our urban forest, not only where tree canopy is low, but also where is there high need.
Gotcha. I see we've got a question in the chat from an audience member asking Rosalie, where do we see our neighborhood in the plan?
So there's a couple different maps within the plan, but like I said, it may be easier on our website, the interactive Canopy map, because you can just put in your address. City of Columbus has names that may or may not make sense to you in terms of what your neighborhood is called. So like I said, there's a map in the plan, but if you're like, I don't really understand what North Central means or Near East, you know, you can also use the interactive Canopy map and really zoom into seeing what the canopy is, both in that community and then also just even within your block group, so on your street.
Okay, great. So goal number one, and thank you for the discussion on equity. That, as we know, is really important. And it's interesting. I mean, I certainly, you know, I live in the Columbus area, inside 270 here, and yeah, it's interesting. You notice sometimes that, wow, it's really a pretty substantial canopy in one area, and there may not be in another. So that's excellent that the city is focused on bringing trees to the areas that need them most. You know, and again, whether that's because of urban heat island effect, or just, you know, cleaning the air, or even the psychological benefits, some of which you mentioned earlier, Rosalie, that I think we're really excited to see that as part of the plan. Another goal, and you mentioned this as goal, the first goal that you mentioned, I should say, is bringing up the canopy to 40%. And I think you mentioned earlier, right now we're at 22%. I think you also mentioned Pittsburgh's at about 40% or so. So that, I mean, that's cool. The idea that we're almost going to basically double the canopy. What can you tell us in terms of that goal and what that might look like?
So 40% was strongly supported by the majority, both of the public comments that we got, as well as our stakeholder groups. So we felt strongly that 40% was across the board what the community viewed as kind of almost a minimum, or the way that we could really be ensuring quality of life for residents. And the idea, a little bit of the analysis behind the 40% is that in that 2015 report that I mentioned that looked at the urban tree canopy assessment, we saw that 59% of Columbus is theoretically plantable, potential plantable space. And so the industry standard is to aim for 75% of what is possible, which is right around 40% for Columbus. So we kind of have the public input that is supporting that goal, and then we also have some analysis that says that it should be possible for our city.
Okay, gotcha. And again, yeah, that I look forward to the day when we've got double tree canopy. I think that's a really exciting concept to think about. So in terms of getting there, though, what might that look like? And I know there's a good amount of detail in there in terms of different, I think, tactics or different ways of getting there. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the key, I guess, implementation measures that are currently, I guess, considered by the Urban Forestry Master Plan?
So we have 15 actions laid out in the Urban Forestry Master Plan. A lot of detail there. Would highly encourage you to, if you're watching, to delve into what we are recommending. In the interest of time, I'll just highlight a few. One is that Columbus does not have a citywide ordinance protecting trees on private property. So anytime that property is being developed, there may be some landscaping requirements, but there's nothing saying you need to preserve a certain amount of trees or, you know, a certain percentage or replace. There's just nothing that we have right now as a regulatory tool citywide, and that is unusual for a city of our size. So that's definitely a priority, is to look at the policies around tree protection, because we know that if we want to grow our canopy, we need to stop losing canopy. And with the amount of growth that Columbus is anticipating, this is really important to make sure we're preserving trees that we have currently, as well as increasing and planting more. So that's definitely one priority. I'll also say that we are interested in forming a tree coalition. The idea being it would be like a community group, a forum that could really unify. There's a lot of great partners that we have out in the community doing a lot of important work around urban forestry and trees, but really trying to unify those groups and having common goals. And especially, we're hoping that with the master plan now we have goals we can work towards as a community, the city being a partner, but really the community taking the lead, especially on the private side. We know that 70% of trees in Columbus are growing on private property, so it's really critical.
That's great. And Rosalie, so I know we touched on this, but I know folks tend to tune in as we go along, so let's make sure we plug again some important opportunities to get engaged in the process of the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan, and it's in a draft stage right now. I think comment is due the end of this month, March 31st. And do you want to talk a little bit again about the webpage and the council meeting as well?
Thank you. Yes. Everybody who's watching, highly encourage you to visit our project website, columbusufmp.org. There you can find the draft documents on the Get Involved tab. So you can look at the draft master plan right there and also submit your comments online, like Nathan said, by the end of the month, March 31st. Please submit comments. We really want your feedback. We also have a council hearing coming up next Wednesday, March 24th at 4 o'clock. And that will also be virtual, and it'll be streamed on Facebook, just like this, as well as through YouTube. And if you're interested in speaking, the details are on our website to make sure you can get on the list of speakers to provide public comment. We're also interested in that. Definitely encourage you to kind of absorb the information from a different format. So grateful to the Ohio Environmental Council for having us in this interview kind of conversation-based format. And the council hearing will be more of presentations, some questions from council members, and then public comment.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. And this is wonderful. Thank you again, Rosalie, for joining us today and for leading this effort. Again, I've had a chance to review the draft plan. It looks really exciting. I think some really tremendous goals in terms of doubling the tree canopy in the city, addressing equity, and really going after some really great opportunities. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for answering a lot of really key questions too, and sharing the opportunity with the public. So I think with that said, we've covered some of the major bases and we've gotten through a fair amount here. We've only got a few minutes left for questions, but I'd like to open that up. So if there are questions, please continue to send them through the chat and we'll review, and I will work on shooting them over to Rosalie. So we've got one here. Okay, so there's a question about, it looks like some neighborhoods within 270, the Beltway, don't have canopy data available on the map and are not available in the neighborhood selection drop-down box. Can you tell us, for example, Worthington is one example of that. Could you tell us a little bit about why that is, or what the situation is with that?
Yes, absolutely. I will share. Until I started working for City of Columbus, I wasn't really familiar with our boundary, and it looks like Swiss cheese. So within the City of Columbus, I think the way that we've developed and grown, and there's these other, surrounding municipalities, they're separate cities, Upper Arlington, Worthington, Delaware, Bexley, Whitehall, there's townships. Our map looks very strange. And so what you're seeing on the map, that is City of Columbus. And if there's a gap, then it's not technically City of Columbus, it's a city, another city, or a township. We are discussing for the next go around, maybe collaborating so we could maybe get countywide data. And again, going back to the idea of an urban forest, it makes sense from from a political boundary perspective, but not so much from the natural resource one. So we may do things a little differently, but the data that you're looking at is from that 2015 report, and that's just the way City of Columbus map looks.
Gotcha. That is helpful. Yeah, and indeed the Swiss cheese, right? But there's a ton of coverage, that said, through Columbus, obviously, in Franklin County. So Rosalie, here's a question, and I know you may have well kind of touched on this, but I think it bears repeating. Can you tell us a little bit about, the recency of urban forestry master plans, urban forestry planning? I mean, is this something that's been around for a long time, or is it something that, I mean, why haven't we really heard of this necessarily up until recently?
That's a great question. So urban forest master plans are kind of a new thing in urban forestry. The first that I'm aware of was in 2012 in the city of Pittsburgh. So we don't even have a full decade under our belt here of master planning for our trees at a citywide level. And so it's exciting that Columbus is, that's part of the answer to why this is the first that Columbus has ever developed. And we're kind of going into uncharted territory here, really excited to see what kind of goals or what kind of progress we can make towards our goals.
Gotcha. Okay. So I've got another one, and Rosalie, you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to put you on the spot with this one. So what is your, and you spent your career in forestry. So with that said, what is your favorite tree species? And can you tell us a little bit about why too?
Nathan, I really appreciate that question. That's so funny. So I love white oak. I love oak in general. I would highly recommend, if you haven't heard of Doug Tallamy, he is presenting actually next Monday. It's a free webinar series through OSU Extension. Highly recommend his talk on Monday at 10 a.m. You can just register. It's called the Welcome Spring Series. He talks about the value of oaks. Oaks are so important. If you're going to plant any tree, plant an oak if you want to support the biodiversity in your yard. And so oaks to begin with, I love, but white oaks are so long-lived, and I think their leaves are so beautiful. I just got married last year, and I have white oaks on my wedding band. So big fan. Thanks for that question.
Absolutely. I have to confer, I must confess, oaks are amazing. White oaks, can't beat them. So thank you, Rosalie. Here's another question about the goal number 2, and that's stopping some of the urban canopy loss that's happening right now. And you mentioned that there's not a statute in place, it sounds like, to kind of handle some of that. I guess the question is, what does that exactly look like? I mean, how is it that we're losing canopy? Is it through development? Is it disease? Or what's the story there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that we can't be 100% sure of the answer. I mean, obviously, emerald ash borer came through over the past years, and we know that we've lost, at least 10% statewide of our ash trees. 10% were ash. So, City of Columbus was no different. We lost thousands and thousands of ash trees on public property. I'm sure just as many on private property. So disease is always a factor, and that's one that is a little bit harder to predict. That's why having a diverse forest is so important to protect against future pests and pathogens. But also, development, we know just anecdotally that is a pressure in any community. And we heard that a lot from our stakeholders. There was a lot of concern about, okay, if we were at 22% before, where are we today? And we don't have a good answer to that because we only have the one data point. That's why we're looking at next year. It's one of the action items within the plan to regularly update our data so that we can really measure, especially now that we have canopy goals, measure our progress. And we're looking at, once we have a second data point, we can then look at the past years and analyze what changes have occurred, citywide, but also at a micro scale, and really understand, what those pressures are on our canopy.
Gotcha. Okay. We have one more audience question. I think, Rosalie, you may have answered this in terms of, if it's not in City of Columbus proper, it's probably not on that map. But that said, it sounds like there's someone who's living kind of on the border of Columbus, New Albany. Doesn't look like it's mapped yet. But can you speak just again briefly to, are there plans or thoughts about how to either work with other municipalities, or if, I guess, the city ends up annexing some property, would that be then incorporated into the plan going forward?
So the master plan that we've created is specifically for City of Columbus. And, that's because that's what we, have control over to some extent, right? So those are our boundaries. That said, we did engage throughout the urban forestry master plan process adjacent municipalities and engaged those. So we actually had Mary Lou Bohannon, she's great, the city forester for New Albany, Bexley, Gahanna, Dublin. We engaged those foresters because, again, it is one system, it is one forest. It's early days with this, but we are considering, I've had some interesting talks with Franklin County Public Health. Again, health and environmental health, it goes back to that idea that there aren't boundaries for air quality or water quality or, urban forests. So really looking at, it might be really interesting the next go around to collect that data. How could we collaborate at more of a regional scale and maybe get some cost savings and help out some of our neighbors as well to get a better picture of how we're doing in Central Ohio and not just specifically City of Columbus.
Okay. Hey, great. Thank you for answering our questions, Rosalie, and for sharing your time with us today. And again, we're at the end today, but again, folks, if you want, like the program in Facebook, that'll help us. Feel free to share this program, spread the good news. And again, there's a great opportunity for public engagement. Public comment is open through the end of the month. You can find the website here. It's at columbusufmp.org, and that's the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan. We've been joined today by Rosalie Hendon. She is a project lead for the Columbus Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan, and really excited about what's in there, what this has in store for the city of Columbus, going from about 22% canopy to 40%. So thank you so much, Rosalie, for your help today. If you have any parting thoughts or anything to share, please, by all means.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks to everybody at the Ohio Environmental Council. You've been great partners to us. We're so grateful. We could not have gotten to this point and created this draft plan that's in such a good spot without all of the help of all of our hundreds and hundreds of stakeholders. Really grateful and really excited to continue the conversation. The plan is just the beginning. We're looking to go to council and our commission in the next month or so after we've been able to review public comment, finalize the plan, and then really officially begin implementation. So this isn't the last you'll hear about this. And just thank you so much again for tuning in. I really appreciate it.